What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk about Protex Mobility, tickers TXTM. There's a lot of big updates I want to share with you, so I'm going to get right to it. Before I do though, making sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Greatly appreciate that. With that, let's get right to it. So I just want to start off by tentatively saying last couple of videos I've been using Yahoo as far as the market cap, which in reality is incorrect. So you can see 6.3 million is what Yahoo is showing. In reality, it is at 31.33 million. So just take that into consideration. But when it comes down to it though, we are currently down 7.5%. A little bit higher volume because of all the big news that was coming out over the last couple of days. So I want to share that with you. So 109 million for volume today, 144 is the average, but there is a couple tweets that did come out, very interesting. So coming out from Dylan, it does look like the financials are completed. That's one thing that a lot of investors were up in the air about, especially when it comes down to over-the-counter stocks. Financials are a little bit more of a touchy subject, so the fact that they're actually moving forward and working on this is a very big deal. Also waiting on over-the-counter markets for a change of control documents to be approved so that they can be finally uploaded. And keep in mind, when it comes to over-the-counter stocks, you need to be up to date with all of your financials in order to eventually get upgraded. So that's what every over-the-counter stock looks forward to as far as a short-term goal, to be upgraded to pink current, because once you hit that mark, then you can easily, assuming financials and assets are kind of in line with expectation, then you can hit that NASDAQ requirements, which technically is Protex's goal for 1 to 2 years out. So that's something you definitely need to keep in mind. So this is a very good update if you ask me. And then when it comes down to it though, another thing outside of the financials that everyone and their dog were waiting on, and that was websites. Websites were live as of yesterday, so you can see there is not just necessarily one, there is 2 new websites. So Protex and RSA. So I'm going to go through some of those and give you some of my highlights and my thoughts on this. So looking here, so this is on Protex's website. In general, it's actually fairly good, especially for an over-the-counter stock. And you notice I keep saying that in a lot of videos because I think the expectation for a lot of over-the-counter stocks is so low. So it's good to see their Protex, their new logo. So obviously they just incorporated the RSA kind of actual symbol, just added Protex underneath. Talks on what Protex is and what they're all about. Talks on RSA as well. Roadmap is a very good thing to have on there. So has all the way back from 2017. So this is a very big deal. If you're ever looking for a little bit more deeper dive on what RSA is and what Protex is, definitely take a look at this website. Very advantageous. Also keep in mind, I am not a financial advisor, so do your own due diligence at the end of the day. And by doing your own due diligence, take a look at this website. I'm not necessarily going to touch on all of this. There's a couple points I do want to elaborate on and explain because post and pre-merger, I think that's very important to tell obviously how beneficial the merger ultimately was. So it goes on what Protex had prior to the merger. So they had no operating cash, no website, which like I always say is typically a fairly big deal, no permits, no farmland, nothing basically. It's just a shell company. That's a good way of putting it. On the opposite side, after the merger, so post-merger, they have kettle farmland in excess of 5,000 hectares, cannabis permits, dispensary license, biomass, seeds. Technically, there's a huge list. So I think in general, though, is a very big thing. The only thing I was actually caught off guard was the union. So hopefully more will come from that, unless I completely missed something. I'm not familiar with RSA having a union, so obviously since they took over. So that's something, again, hopefully there's more information that does come from that. Intellectual property as well. And as well, outside of all this, one thing that they have not really touched on is technically the new integration of psychedelics, because in previous conferences they have really talked on that, and clearly they want to use that a lot going forward. So that definitely is a very big thing. It talks on the leadership, so ultimately Dr. J, Mr. Dylan, and Dr. Regina. So overall, if you ever want additional information, definitely pop over. It has a lot of good information. But in the end though, I think that this is a very good website, but you also want to look more so on the RSA website. So it does look very eerily similar, so you can even tell the logo is the same, just has RSA. It talks on acquisitions. So at the end of the day, if you take anything from this video, there's a lot of good things that came from post-merger, obviously on the Protex website, and then this. So yes, it has a lot of similarities about the leadership team, publications, contact, but acquisitions. This is where you really want to pay attention to. So looking on the acquisitions, so ultimately it talks on the first acquisition as far as the several parts and components of that, second acquisition, and third acquisition. You heard me right. A possible second and third acquisition may be in the works. Don't you want to know? Don't you want to know? So in general, I think a lot of investors definitely want to know all this information. Is going to be a very big deal if you ask me, my own 2 cents. So like I said, coming from the ProText standpoint, I think that's very good. RSA, the only thing I would really take away from kind of reviewing both of these websites is clearly RSA going forward in the future is really wanting to keep RSA and ProText separate. So kind of defeats the purpose of having a reverse merger. I was going to be doing a interview with obviously the management team with Dylan and possibly Dr. J. Still waiting on to hear on that. So make sure you do subscribe to my primary channel, which is in the description below, because that is where the interview is going to be. Obviously just trying to figure things out as far as a time frame. But in general though, that was one of the questions that I did have for them, is what is going to be coming from assets. Are you going to be completely moving it all over to ProText? Are you going to keep some under RSA's kind of umbrella? What is going to be the breakdown of that? So in general though, I think this does answer some of the questions. The fact that they have 2 separate websites, they do intend on having things for the most part pretty separate. My own 2 cents, obviously that's just me jumping to conclusions. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below, but generally speaking, there's a lot of information on here, even technically interviews on here. So if you are looking for good interviews and information, definitely take a look at that website. Like I said, that's a good place of knowledge, of information, and clearly has a lot of good Easter eggs on there as well. So the second and third acquisitions is clearly something that might be coming in the future. You never know. But when it comes down to the technicals, we are failing to get past very pivotal points, which 0.004 is a very pivotal point. That is exactly the 100-day moving average. And so we've really failed to get over that, largely because of different fears out there, brought on largely because of the lack of financial news, a lack of websites, because obviously the website was supposed to come out roughly about a week ago. It just seems like when it comes down to the TXTM to ProText, they're very, very impatient. So that might be a good thing, bad thing, I'm not really sure. Stochastic though is at 9, so that is extremely oversold. And looking at momentum is fairly flat over the last little bit, so we do need a good catalyst to get us over that. In reality, I think a lot of expectation from investors as well was that the website would give a great opportunity for as far as people purchasing products from ProText, especially considering they're able to ship it worldwide, have a lot of different permits throughout the whole world, so they can actually ship a lot of their products, benefit from their actual website. But based on all of this, it doesn't appear as though you can actually order anything on here. So that might be something that comes in the future. I'm not really sure. Again, hopefully the management team does provide a little bit more updates, because I think a large expectation was, especially based on the huge connections that they have worldwide, that they could actually capitalize on this website. But with all of that fun stuff said, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts overall on ProText in the comments below. If you're a big fan, if you've been buying, selling, holding, whatever it is, let me know in the comments below. I greatly appreciate that. And with all that said though, I appreciate you guys watching, and let's all make a lot of money on ProText.